give a special thanks to Marsh Reef and Urban Acrylic for this video.
So today we're going to go over some simple PVC plumbing tips. We're going to go over how to build a main animal overflow. And before we start that, I just want to show you guys a couple of quick tips on working with PVC glue so that you don't spill it and cause a mess.
Oh, what's the point? You gotta make a mess.
What I do is I take the cleaner and the PVC glue, a little bit of duct tape, and I glue them together, just like that. And you can take them, put a little strip between them, tape it down to your working surface. So you got a stable can of PVC.
5 years ago. Yeah.
How many cans did you spill before you used it? Probably a few. So I always go ahead and loosen them both up when I'm working with it. I also always have some Vaseline, a small bottle with me, for any kind of gaskets, O-rings, anything like that. It helps with forming a proper seal for a bulkhead. Any gaskets inside of a union or a tree union ball valve, put a little bit of Vaseline on there, it keeps it nice and sealed. Keeps the water from penetrating any extra little crevices. And I'm going to go ahead and move on to our main animal. Actually, before that, I'm going to start with just basic principles of PVC. Start with a 90. It's a solvent to solvent fitting. If you had a female pipe thread, one side would have threads in it and the other side would have threads if it was a dual pipe thread. But you can get them with pipe threads on the inside, male pipe, or you can get them dual slip like this. Anytime I'm gluing PVC, you want it to be airtight where you're not going to have any pinhole leaks. I always use cleaner. Go around and clean the male part first, the end of the pipe, inside layer, everything. Get it nice and good. Then you want to take your fitting, your solvent fitting, you want to clean both ends, the outside edge, both sides. Done with that. And when you want to glue, this is the most important part. A lot of people just take these and they glue this pipe, but they don't glue the inside of the fitting. If you do that, when you put the fitting in, it's so tight, all the glue is going to squish out to the outside of the pipe. So it's not actually going to seal all the way through. So any water running through the pipe will be able to leak out through osmosis naturally, but it's going to take the path of least resistance. So what we're going to do is we are going to glue the female solvent first, one time around, the end of it really well. Make sure you got a nice layer of glue in there. We're going to take this in, we're going to go one time around, get the end of it. We got a nice layer, about a ½ inch thick all the way around. Push it in, you want to make sure it butts all the way in and you want to turn it until it stops moving. Once it stops moving, that means the chemical is actually bonded and you got a nice tight seal. Alright, now we'll move to the bead animal. So what we have here is some true union ball valves. These are always good. If you have to take your overflow box, clean it, remove your bulkheads, anything like this, this is always a really good thing to have because you can always just disconnect your plumbing or your sump and remove everything. It's got gasket seals, so you're not going to have any leaks. And also, you have your ball valve to help you regulate any flow through your pipes. The way a bean animal overflow works is you have one pipe, which is going to be a full siphon, and you want to, on the 90s, when you put this in your overflow box, you want to take some of this. It's a screen for gutters. You get it at any Home Depot or Lowe's. Cut it about 2½ inches thick, roll it up, stick it inside your pipe. You want to put it into your T, and when you have it in your overflow box, you want it to be resting on the very bottom so no fish or hermit crabs or any snails can get in your pipes. On your main siphon pipe, you want to have a cap with no hole. You want it to be sealed airtight. In order to do that, there's a little trick you can use. Instead of gluing it to where it's permanently that way, you can use a little Teflon tape. Put one layer of Teflon tape around the top, pull it tight, take your fitting, push it over it, now it's airtight. Do the same thing on your 90. One layer of Teflon. Make sure it's nice and tight fitting. Push it in. Got a nice tight seal. You got your first full siphon ready to go.
Any Teflon exposed to water is not harmful to the fish or the tank?
No. Teflon tape is an inert material, so it's not going to chemically respond. Okay, so our next fitting is going to be our trickle overflow. This is, when you adjust this overflow right here, when you dial it back to where it's in a full siphon and no air is entering it, you basically have water trickling over this one at a really slow pace. If for some reason your full siphon is clogged, this one, you would basically have your rubber band take a rubber band, you fasten it around your neck on this overflow, and you want to hold it to where it's underneath the water level in your overflow. What happens when you do this is this pipe's going to be running at a trickle, but if this ever gets clogged, this pipe can be your backup at a full siphon, because once this goes underwater, it creates a full siphon in this overflow. So you've got a backup in there, and they're always in your B&L overflows. You want to have at least one backup for both drains, just in case they both get stopped. PVC cutters from Home Depot, much faster than using a hacksaw. $12, well worth the purchase. Nice clean cut every time you cut with it. You don't have to use any wire brushes or anything to get the shavings off. Good to go. You want to make this as tall as your two overflows so that your water is never going to get high enough to overflow outside your tank. You've got your return fitting, and on all returns that I do, I always make sure and take this corner of this 90 right here, which this is actually the slip to thread fitting I was talking about earlier. You get the female thread for your lock line, you get your slip fitting for your pipe. So I always go ahead and put this in first. No real need to use Teflon tape on this because it's going to be sealed tight as it is, and you're going to have a siphon stop that we're about to drill in here. Just drill a little hole right here, so whenever your water is spraying into your tank, it's spraying out of here also, but what happens is if your power ever turns off, air is going to go through that hole, and it's not going to siphon the water back out of your tank however low this is. So I normally use about an 1/8 inch drill bit, maybe a little bit bigger. But right here in this corner, do not drill a hole for your hand. Start out slow. Excess plastic in the hole. You got a nice siphon stop right there. Install that right here. You got your bean animal overflow. Once again, you've got your extra security drain right here, your full siphon drain right here, and your trickle drain right here. When you adjust these fittings after you get these on. You have your full siphon right here. And your trickle right here. Once you have this running, you want to adjust your full siphon as much as possible to create the effect of having no air bubbles making it to your sump. You want to have your line coming from here into your sump submerged underwater so that you can tell if there's any air bubbles making it through the pipe. You adjust it accordingly. You leave this full open, then it creates a trickle. The trickle only covers the outside of the pipe as it's falling down, meaning it doesn't create any noise or flushing sounds. So you have your full siphon here, which is capable of siphoning up to 2,000 gallons per hour at a 1-inch voltage. So it's pretty hard to use a pump too big for a normal size tank. If you have a very large tank, you have like a 5,000 gallon per hour return pump, then you want to move up to 1.5-inch plumbing. But you use all the same principles. Any questions?
David, on the trickle line, do you need a true union ball valve?
I always use true union ball valves on every piece of plumbing coming from the tank. Because if you ever have to remove the tank in an emergency or remove your plumbing or anything, say somehow something is leaking, you need to fix it, you can always remove it instead of having to cut everything out and re-plumb it. Any other questions?
The emergency tube?
The emergency tube, same thing. Every pipe, you want to be able to disconnect it, and you want ease of disconnection or to work to maintain your aquarium. So if you ever had to take your sump out, if there's a leak in your sump, say, you need to disconnect all these pipes from it, you literally just disconnect your ball valves.
Well, I
Take the other half.
wouldn't be against putting a union on there.
But so a lot of people have probably run into this in the past, because I have. If you ever disconnect your plumbing from your overflow box, a lot of times there's excess water in your overflow box that will trickle down and drip. So it keeps you from making a mess in the process. You can always turn the ball valve off and then just remove the unit.
And then that's also to control the air bubbles going down into your sump.
Yeah, on the full side of the sump. On these, it's just there for, just in case you ever had to turn it off to remove your plumbing. You basically just turn this off, remove the bottom half, because you don't want any water coming through this and going to your floor. And you can always just easily connect it back. Like I said, easily.
You think on the full siphon tube, is it worth it to spring for an actual gate valve, or you think the ball valve is enough?
The gate valve is going to be a lot more sensitive as far as adjustment, so you can get a lot more accurate with the gate valve. Ball valves are a lot more easy to come by for nice ones. If you get a cheap gate valve, it's not going to be as good as a nice ball valve. So they'll get really brittle and they can break, and you'll have to replace them. If you're going to get a gate valve, I would recommend Schedule 80. It's a lot more expensive, but it's a lot better as far as the ease of use.
You think it's worth it, or you think it's a bit too pricey?
For a normal aquarium, I would say just go with the regular true union ball valve, Schedule 40. The price is a lot cheaper, and there's really no reason to have it that finely tuned. If you had a very large pump on a very large aquarium, then I would go with the gate valve so you can adjust it a little finer.
Where do you get the screw?
They have an actual metal machine screw mount that you put on your wall, and it has machine screws coming off of it. You just have wing nuts to tie it on.
Say that again, you what?
You can either tie it on with wing nuts or you can tie it on with regular nuts and bolts.
Oh, okay.
One tip I was going to point out that I read on the return valve, on the return with the pinhole, sometimes that'll be leaking out and making some noise in your tank, which I found annoying. you can actually take, just zip tie a piece of the foam, like you would put as an intake on things, and let it run down to your water level. So the trickle will then go down the foam and makes absolutely no noise. And then you can just cut the zip tie off and place it every 6 months.
Yeah, zip tying a piece of like bonded filter pad or anything like that would be a great idea for keeping it silent. The thing you got to watch out for if you do that is if you have any salt creep build up there, it could cause it to plug up. So just make sure and keep it maintained properly and you shouldn't have any issues. Any other questions?
Question about the Vaseline, is that on the seals and everything?
So any gaskets, you want to make sure you get the Vaseline that's non-scented, just regular old Vaseline. Take a little bit of it on your finger, just take your gasket out. Take a good way around the whole gasket. So you seal both sides, not just the top. Go back in there. Good. Butterfingers still.
And if any of the Vaseline does come in contact with the tank water again, it's not this issue.
Petroleum jelly, so the Vaseline is actually going to repel any water.
David, how do those true union ball valves hold up pretty good? Or?
Oh yeah, much better than the traditional.
Yeah, no, I would.
Those are really similar to the Schedule 80 ball valves.
They're what now?
They're really similar to the Schedule 80 builds. Schedule 80 ball valves and the true union ball valves are all much better quality. But those are the closest to quality you can get with Schedule 4 ball.
I was going with mail ordering my true union ball valves to get a good quality one because I was used to those and just bad.
A little bit used to these.
But yeah.
Yeah, these are horrible.
I stopped using those years ago. But
The true union ball valves is what you do is you test them out at the store. You can easily figure out if they're good quality or not, just based on the ease of use. I find that these are really good for any normal size tank. Once you get up to the bigger one, you want to go ahead and go with either Schedule 80 or you can get Schedule 40, but I would recommend Schedule 80. It's a lot less brittle over time and it's a lot more heavy duty.
So they have the 80s or
Lowe's actually sells Schedule 80.
okay, for the
I don't think they have the Schedule 80 ball valves.
okay, but
They have regular plumbing, but not the ball valves. The best place to look at would probably be Walker's.
They have Schedule 80 ball valves.
I